What's up, y'all? Today we are talking about the number one sign that they are sent from God. That's right, I said the number one sign that they are sent from God. Now, this right here, you probably gonna need discernment for this in order to recognize this one, but I want y'all to see the number one sign. What is the number one sign? What do y'all think it is? You think it's their fruit? Because I know I see a lot of people saying their fruit. It's their fruit, right? I know I hear a lot of women say, you know them by their fruit. Do you? Do you know them by their fruit? Because I remember a tree being in the garden that had fruit on it. I remember God had fruit in the garden, but then there was another fabricated, fake, phony, deceitful tree that also had some fruit that looked like God's fruit. So how do you determine what fruit is God's fruit? That's the question. How? Because Eve ate the wrong fruit, didn't she? She ate the fruit that God told her not to eat, that God told them not to eat. So could it be that we could be confused by the fruit? So is it by the fruit? Or is there another way to figure out the fruit, right? Because you have to recognize what's God's and what's not. So what is that number one sign and how do you figure this out? So I don't want to confuse y'all. I'm gonna also make another video about this fruit thing. But I want people to understand how it may be hard to recognize that fruit, but the only way that you can recognize that fruit is based on whose fruit it is. How do you know whose fruit it is? It's through the root. It's from the seed. It's from the tree. You have to know whose it is because remember, Eve was talking to the enemy. Remember, she was talking to the one who was trying to present that fruit to her and confuse her. So I'm going to help y'all see in this video what the number one sign is that you can tell that someone is sent from God. And no, it's not just specifically based on their fruit, but this is how you're actually able to see their fruit. That number one sign is conviction, y'all. Yup, conviction. Now, conviction is not something that you can just see, right? It's not just something that you can just see with your physical eyes because you have to know how to see it. You have to recognize what it is. And let me tell you why I'm saying this is the number one trait. Because the devil has no conviction. He can't have conviction. Why? Why is conviction number one? And I'm talking about with God's people because people who don't follow God can have conviction, right? That doesn't make them a bad person. But when it comes to someone who follows God, when you can see the Spirit of God in somebody, that's conviction, right? Just like Jesus saw the Spirit inside of Paul, even though he was doing the wrong thing, right? He's seen that he had what God could use inside of him, right? Just like David. God says, I see a man's heart. I look at his heart, right? So he saw what was inside of him and he knew he needs me, right? I can use him. He can be a pillar in my kingdom. So how do you see conviction, y'all? Well, for one, the devil can't be convicted because to be convicted is to care about others. To be convicted is to think about others. To be convicted, you have to actually take yourself out of the equation and do something for someone else, despite what it does for you. I'm convicted. Now, I'm going to bring up some situations, right, where you can recognize this. But again, let me get that in your heads. Conviction. Conviction. All right, I got ahead of myself. So I'm going to go over conviction, all right? I found a meaning based on what the Bible presents it as. So we're going to go over it, okay? So it says, when a person sins, they are made aware of it by the Holy Spirit. This is called conviction. Conviction comes from the Spirit through the conscience informed by God's word. So conviction can be when someone feels bad because they did something wrong, right? When it comes to God, when you are convicted, right, God, now you're close to God. Like when you're saved, let's just say you got saved by God. You used to do all the things that you used to do, and you would go outside, you would go have fun, you would drink, you would have sex, you would smoke, you would treat people wrong, you would be evil, you would fight fire with fire. You would do all these things that God does not like, that are all sinful in his eyes, that are all evil in his eye. But when you get close to God, now you feel like, nah, I shouldn't be doing that. Or, nah, I'm not going to do that. Or, God saved me from that. Why would I do that? Right? Or even if you do slip up and do it, now you feel bad about it. All right? That's what conviction is. It's not condemnation. Condemnation is when you condemn yourself. Is when you feel guilty and you consistently think bad about yourself, think wrong about yourself. I always tell people conviction is like correction. Conviction makes you turn back this way. It points you in the other direction. It causes you to do what is right rather than causes you to do what makes you feel good. That's what conviction is. So just say you went and spoke to somebody and you know that this person gets offended off of certain things, or you know that something may hurt them, maybe something they did in the past and you probably brought it up. Now in the past, you probably wouldn't care. But in this moment, you brought it up by mistake. And now you're like, dang, I probably shouldn't have said that because I know how to make that person feel. That's conviction. That's conviction. So now it causes you to correct yourself, go back and apologize. You just had conviction. Imagine being in an argument with someone and they yelling at you and you yelling at them, but now you feel bad about it. Now you're like, dang, I probably shouldn't have did that. Now I would rather us have peace. All of a sudden, everything starts changing now. That's what conviction is, right? You feel a little guilty type of feeling that causes you want to do the right thing. It causes you to want to correct what you have done. It causes you to change something, no matter how that person was, no matter if they apologize back to you or not, especially when it's God's conviction. Because the Bible tells us to put ourselves last and to put God first, meaning to do what he says before we think about what we want, right? So when you have someone who is convicted, are they like that? Do they tell? I always bring up this little example about telling a little white lie, right? If somebody's over here and they're like, somebody called them, because I think it's a good way to figure this out by how they treat others and not just you. Because anybody can treat you away, but how they really are will be seen through how they are with others. Are they convicted with others and not just you? Because the Bible teaches us how to be towards others, not just a specific person, right? So are they like this? Their spirit means they do this for everyone. So if somebody was to call up that person, have you ever seen that person make up a little white lie like, yeah, I'll be there in 10 minutes. I'm on the road, but they really in the house? Are they convicted about that? Are they the type of person that's like, you know what, I want to be off tomorrow and I really don't want to work tomorrow, man. So I'm about to make up this, I'm going to just tell them that I got this going on. Are they convicted about that? Because conviction doesn't mean that you're going to do everything right all the time, because that's why you're convicted. Following God doesn't mean that you're perfect and you're going to do everything right all the time, but are they convicted? That's how you see God's spirit, because that person almost did something wrong, but then the spirit corrected them. Conviction. Nah, I probably shouldn't do that. You know what? I probably shouldn't do that, because you know that God doesn't want you to walk that way. You know God wants you to walk in righteousness. That means he wants you to do right. That means he wants you to be honest. That means he wants you to put others above yourselves. That means that you got to suffer to do certain things that you don't even want to do, because that literally shows that you are dying to yourself for God. You are doing the opposite of what the world would do. Can you see somebody being convicted when you're in an argument or someone argues with someone else, but they take the blame, or they come back after the argument and they apologize, or they feel bad about it, or they want to be like, this is what conviction displays, y'all. And I got a few notes down because I don't want to forget certain things that I have written down, because this video is important to me. I really want people to understand. So I'm going to say a few things and then I'm going to keep talking, okay? So hear me, y'all. This is what conviction is. In order to be selfless, you have to be convicted. In order to be corrected, you have to be convicted. In order to walk in righteousness, you have to be convicted. You have to. When you come to God, in order to change who you are from the past, that means you had to look at the things that you've done. That means you had to look at yourself, right? That's what conviction is. You take a look at yourself. You're able to look in the mirror, right? So you had to be convicted to even follow God, because a worldly mind is a selfish mind. A worldly mind does not have conviction. This is why I said it's the number one sign. If you can see conviction in someone, matter of fact, when you display conviction to others, that shows them the Spirit of God. That shows them that you can forgive them when they did you wrong. That shows them that you can apologize first. Because as a follower of God, we're supposed to do things first. We are the example of Christ. He died for us first. So that means you got to die to your feelings first. That means you got to die to what you want first. And that's why it's hard to walk this walk. But this is the truth. Let me keep going, y'all. In order to display the fruit of the Spirit, you have to have conviction. You don't have to be perfect to have conviction, but conviction brings willingness. And Jesus said that the flesh is weak, but the Spirit is willing. Key word, willing. So conviction shows your willingness even though you may do things wrong. This is why I tell people, I don't want a woman that's perfect. I can't find a woman that's perfect, but I want a woman who is willing, and I want a woman who has conviction, because she could do whatever she want to do wrong, right? Except for cheat. But that allows me to know that she keeps God first. That's what it shows. It shows that you keep God first, because you can make a mistake. She could say something wrong to me and I don't like it, but then I know for a fact that she's going to come back and apologize. Or I know for a fact that she's going to feel bad about it and want to do what is right. That's what conviction is. And when you have a close relationship with God, God wants you to do right to others. God wants you to put yourself to the side. This is how I know a woman of God, a true woman of God, will have accountability, will be able to look in the mirror, will have conviction. So if she make a mistake, say something wrong, do something wrong, it's all good, because I know this woman has conviction. I know that she has willingness to correct herself, right? So I allow the wrongdoings, not the worst things, but obviously I not allow it, because we're going to talk about it and all that. But what I'm trying to say is I'm able to have more grace and mercy and forgiveness and love for her, and even die to myself, because I know she has the Spirit of God in her, convicting her when she does wrong. And I would pray and hope that she has the same thing for me. You get what I'm saying? Because she knows that I'm not perfect. I'm not a perfect man, but I have God that's going to correct me, right? And in order to correct me, I have to feel convicted. That conviction will correct me to go back to God and to do what is right, to love her when I don't feel like it, to apologize when I feel like she should apologize, to not be selfish, but to put myself aside and be like Christ. This is what conviction produces, y'all. This is why this is the number one thing. But this doesn't happen overnight. But this isn't something that you just see. This isn't somebody opening a car door, ladies, and being nice to you and taking you out on a date, and you thinking that they just go to church and that they follow God and that they go to Bible study. But does that person have conviction? Because you got to remember, the devil was at the church. You got to remember, the devil was in the garden. So he's presenting himself. Don't pick the wrong fruit because you don't know the root of the fruit or the tree or the seed. Know whose seed has been planted. Know the root of that tree so that you can know the fruit on that tree. You understand? Because conviction literally reveals the root of that tree. It literally reveals the seed, and it reveals the type of fruit that's on that tree. But if you paying attention to just the fruit, oh, this man just smiles. Oh, this girl, she look good and she go to church. That don't mean that they don't have an evil heart. I'm just, hey, don't get mad at me. I'm keeping it real. It's the truth. You have to know. And number one way is pay attention if that person has conviction, how they treat others. Do they put themselves to the side? Are they able to correct themselves? Do they look in the mirror? All of these things come from conviction. Let me keep going because I told you I wrote this down. Don't be mad at me, y'all. I be writing stuff down. I got to, but this one right here, this was a lot, so I got to read this, okay? In order to do what is right, you have to have conviction. Jesus says to die to yourself. Someone who is convicted will keep you right with God because they fear God. That's a fact, y'all. In order to be convicted, that means I fear God. I fear him. That means I got to correct what I did, right? When you fear God, you are convicted to do what is right in his eyes. It makes you correct yourself to follow him. This is why I got to have a woman that, and I know I was just talking about it, but this is exactly why I have to have a woman that has conviction, y'all. I also wrote, but a woman says she loves God and has no conviction is a no-no. That means she doesn't truly have God's spirit. Now, I'm going to go to David, right? Because David had convicted. I'm going to let y'all see the story, right? Matter of fact, I got it in my phone. In 1 Samuel 24, I'm going to read it real quick because I'm going to let y'all see the conviction he had. All right, I'm going to read it real quick. 1 Samuel chapter 24 says, and I'm going to read just a few verses. After Saul returned from fighting the Philistines, that's King Saul. After Saul returned from fighting the Philistines, he was told that David had gone into the wilderness of En-Gedi. I think I said that right, En-Gedi. So Saul chose 3,000 elite troops from all Israel and went to search for David and his men near the rocks of the wild goats. At the place where the road passes from sheepfolds, Saul went into a cave to relieve himself. But as it happened, David and his men were hiding farther back in that very cave. Now's your opportunity. Pay attention, y'all. Now's your opportunity, David's men whispered to him. Today, the Lord is telling you, I will certainly put your enemy into your power to do with as you wish. Notice he had other people telling him this. So David crept forward and cut off a piece of the hem of Saul's robe. But then David's conscience began bothering him because he had cut Saul's robe. His conscience. That's your conviction, y'all. He said to his men, the Lord forbid that I should do this to my Lord the king. I shouldn't attack the Lord's anointed one, for the Lord himself has chosen him. So David restrained his men and did not let them kill Saul. After Saul had left the cave and gone on his way, David came out and shouted after him, my Lord the king. And when Saul looked around, David bowed low before him. So I just wanted to present that because that's just one story where you see conviction. King David, well, he wasn't King David at the time. He was just David, and King Saul wanted to kill him. And God basically allowed King Saul to get in David's presence where he couldn't even see him. Meaning, David he caught him slipping. David caught him slipping and he could have killed him. That means he could have hurt him, but he chose not to do it because he feared God. His men told him, now he's in your hands. Now you could kill him and do whatever you want. But he felt bad after he cut his robe. He didn't even try to kill him. He cut his robe and still felt bad. The smallest thing he did made him feel bad, gave him conviction to do what God wanted him to do. Conviction, y'all. Who else? Saul, the Saul, which is Paul, not King Saul, but Saul. Remember, Saul was killing Christians. He had no conviction, right? But when he was saved by Jesus, when his eyes was open because he was blinded, then he had conviction, y'all. You get what I'm saying? Now he didn't want to hurt no one. Now he didn't want to treat people the way he did. Now he was apologizing for what he did. Now he had to look at what he did, and he had to show and tell them that he wasn't that way. Now he had to love those that he once was out to kill, right? This produces and shows conviction, y'all. Peter too. Peter felt convicted, y'all. Y'all remember when Peter denied Jesus 3 times? It says that he felt bad after, right? He felt bad after the rooster crowed. That's conviction. To follow Jesus, y'all, we have to be convicted to do what is right. That don't mean we just walk in the way that we want. But when we do or slip up doing it because we're in a sinful world and we're not perfect, do we allow the Spirit to convict us? Fellas, Does that woman have conviction, or does she just go to church? Do you see Jesus' spirit inside of her? Ladies, do he just go to church and make you feel good all day and take you out and all of that? Or can you see Jesus inside of him? Now, I always say, in order to see conviction, you have to have it in you, or else you'll be blind to it. You can't even recognize it and watch for it because you don't know what it is, because it's not in you. The more convicted you are to do what is right, to correct your behavior, to look in the mirror, to be accountable, to do good to others, to correct the bad things that you do, the more you become like that, guess what? The more you'll actually be able to see it. Let me keep going, y'all. I'm going to make another example that I wrote in here, okay? Telling a lie, we know God says not to lie. It doesn't mean we are perfect. So people may lie from habit or fear, but they are trying to work on it. So say someone lies and doesn't feel bad about it. They may not have conviction, especially if they did it intentionally and multiple times. But say someone lies and does feel bad about it and hates that they did it and wants to correct what they did as well as ask God and the person to forgive them, and they apologized about what they did. That shows that they have conviction and their heart is right in God's eyes, even though they sinned. That's a fact, y'all. In order to turn to God, you have to first have conviction, like I was telling y'all. To be convicted, you have to take yourself out of the equation and think of others, how Jesus is. He takes himself out. He's not selfish. He thinks of others instead of himself. Conviction also causes you to suffer for God. Even when someone does you wrong and it causes you to do them wrong, you will end up apologizing to them even if they don't apologize to you, which will cause you to still possibly be treated wrong. And I know y'all don't like that, but I'm trying to tell you this is what conviction is. We got to suffer for Christ. But now you are not treating them wrong. Now you're forgiving them and trying to love them how God says to love your enemy. So conviction, y'all. I know this was a long video, but this is a very important video. I hope y'all really took something out. I ain't gonna lie, I hope y'all felt a little bit conviction, right? Because when I learned this and when I see this stuff in the Bible, I feel convicted, right? I really do. So we all should feel convicted. Conviction is not bad. Conviction blesses us. Conviction helps us and strengthens us and helps us to become more like Christ and more loving to others and stronger spiritually. Condemnation is wrong. Condemnation hurts us. So can you see conviction in someone? That's the number one thing. That's the number one way to recognize if they are sent from God. Not because how they make you feel. I'm trying to tell you, you cannot just tell someone is from God by how they make you feel. That is a lie, because that's what the devil did to Eve. That's what the world does with us. If we think everybody is sent from God because of how they make us feel, then how could we ever see God when God consistently tells us to do things that don't make us feel good? When God consistently displays his love, even when it don't feel good. Stop measuring who God is, or stop using a measuring stick from emotion to see God, because you will be blinded by your emotion, because your emotion lies. Your emotion is your flesh. Yes, God gave us emotion, but he did not give it to us to indicate whose spirit is what. It's for alertness. It's to help us to also love others as well. But it's not a measuring stick to see if something is true or not, because it literally will show us a lie. Emotion can also help us change ourselves because we did something wrong, or because there's a wrong feeling behind something. It can alert us about ourselves too, not just by how somebody makes us feel. Your emotion is not God. God is God. His spirit, not my emotion. He can also speak and reveal things through our emotion, but you cannot use your emotion, your feelings, as a measuring stick to see if somebody is sent from God, because you will end up being with someone who is not godly. How do I know? Because Jesus came, and did those people not feel bad? Did they not call him all the names in the world and kick him out their cities and make them leave because of how they felt? And it wasn't just because of how he made them feel. It's because of how they thought he made them feel. He literally is love and truth. And truth does not feel good. God is the truth. So just imagine, oh, they made me feel bad because they said this. They said truth with love. It's just that you didn't receive it because of how you felt, which was based on your life and what you don't know, or how you might have felt in the past. That don't make it not love. That don't make it not God. That don't make it not truth. So we can't keep measuring that. Pay attention, learn God, learn who he is, learn his spirit, and you'll be able to see him past your emotion. Because if you cannot see God past your emotion, if you cannot see God in someone past your emotion, that's an easy way that the devil can get to you. And he will use that every time to catch you slipping, because he knows that your God is your emotion and it's not God. But God knows that the enemy can't catch you slipping if you look at his spirit past your emotion. Tell me I'm not lying. That's why Jesus had to do what he had to do past his emotion. That's facts. So again, y'all, conviction. Study conviction and learn what it is, and ask God to convict you more, and ask God to show you if someone has conviction in them, and study conviction in the Bible. I guarantee, in order to walk like God, you have to have conviction in your heart, or else that's not God. That's the world. That's evil. That's selfishness. That's pride. That's a fact. All right. I hope this helped y'all. I hope this really blessed y'all. I really hope that y'all please like this video. Please share this video. And please send this to someone. Please. Now, I don't say that much, but conviction, that's a big deal. That is a great way, the number one way to see God's spirit. I said his spirit, to see God's spirit. All right? I hope this blessed y'all. I love y'all. I'm going to get at y'all when I get at y'all.